aware of how it's happening, what's going on, so you know what not to fall for. So let's dive right in. All right. So my objectives for this webinar, and I'll have to keep myself from talking too much because I have talked about this topic for many years, and it's very near and dear to my heart that I keep people from falling victim to scams. So we're going to talk about the type of scams that are out there. There are many. And we're going to go over some tips to avoid scammers. And then finally, we're going to know where to report frauds and scams. And I thought I would start with the finish, actually. So right now, there's just 2 steps to avoid falling victim to scam. It's that easy. You just say no and you take time and research. Well, it's not as easy as it sounds. So we're actually going to come back to this at the end with some additional tips, and I'll explain what I mean by those. But here's why it's not as easy as it sounds. Financial fraud is actually known as white-collar crime, which is defined as financially motivated, nonviolent crime, which is a whole lot of big words to say that somebody's stealing your money without physically assaulting you. Within criminology, it was defined in 1939 as crime committed by a person of respectability and high social status in the course of his occupation. Of course, it'd be his or her, because we know that con artists come in all shapes and sizes, ages, and genders. The scary part about white collar crime or financial fraud is that you actually have to agree to part with your money. And the reason I read you that old definition is because the person who is trying to steal your money is trying to put on a disguise of respectability. So I'm going to go with my points out of order. It says down toward the bottom, you can't tell by looking. You can't tell by looking because they're not a stereotypical bad guy or bad girl. It's not somebody wearing stripes and a mask. It's not cybercrime by somebody in a hoodie. That's always the picture you see, is somebody hacking in a sweatshirt with a hood up so you can't see their face. They actually look just like everybody. Like I said, all ages, all shapes and sizes. And they work very hard to be convincing. The con in con man actually stands for convincing, and they have to convince you to part with your money. So you actually have to sign something over. So when a burglary happens, you're not home probably. They've broken into your home when you're not there, and they've stolen some things. But with a financial crime, you've actually had to play a part in it. You've had to sign something, you've had to give some kind of access, maybe you've clicked on a link or whatever it is that you've done. So that makes you part of how it happened, and that helps the bad guy because it leads us to underreport fraud. So we feel bad for it happening. We feel bad for losing our money in the first place. And we also feel bad for falling for it. And because it's underreported, this is how it continues to happen. And that's how it can happen to anyone because of the fact that they're so convincing. They even sometimes have credentials that sound real. They'll have a title after their name or a certification, or they'll say they're some kind of expert and they'll produce proof. Well, some of the proof is good and some of the expert certifications are real, and some of them are simple as going online and paying a fee, and then they send you a document saying you are now a certified senior expert. Pick a title. So also, scam artists know how to use your emotions against you. So there are a lot of emotions involved with your money. Money is important to everybody in different ways. And so a con artist will ask different questions, and they will find out what's important to you, and they will play on your emotional triggers. So if you are afraid about something, a lot of the scams right now that have changed from the traditional type of scam to kind of a COVID sort of scam because of fear. So they're going to try to make you feel afraid that you need to act fast so that you can protect yourself against whatever it is they're talking about. There's a sense of urgency. That whole acting fast is to get you to not think about or do the research. And then greed. A lot of times scams are just simply trying to get you to part with your information or part with your money in the hopes of making more. Real quick, I want to share a stat. The Financial Fraud Research Center reports that Americans lose up to $50 billion per year to fraud. And again, that's underreported, so it's actually probably higher. And 80% of consumers over 40 have been solicited. And again, that's probably higher as well. So many of you on the call may have already been solicited before. Hopefully you didn't fall for it. Briefly, scams come in many forms. You can see them online, through your email, through social media. There are fake websites, there are advertisements or other content online that's not to be trusted. They could come through your phone. A lot of us get robocalls, but nowadays people are using text too. So links in text are very similar to links in email. So when we talk about that, keep your texts in mind. And finally, in person, door-to-door salesmen. When I list groups like churches and clubs, I don't mean the whole group. Probably the whole group's not a fraud or a con artist, but there could be somebody who has joined your group. And in fact, it's a scam tactic that has a name. They call it affinity fraud. So the con artist wants to make him or herself as much like you as possible. So they will join these groups and maybe stay involved for a long time before mentioning an offer or a deal. But then finally, when that offer or deal comes up, they hope that they have lulled you into being friends with them enough that you won't question it and that you'll fall for it. And then finally, the free lunch workshop. I hope there's been a decline in those right now since we're not supposed to be gathering. So hopefully there's not so many of those in person going on, but they may have changed form. There might be a webinar version, or they'll probably come back later as people start to go out and about again. So I've got a poll question, and I wanted to know what scams you've been hearing about. So as I talk about these scams, I wanted to make sure to address the ones that you have heard about locally that we know they're out there. I've got information from the Federal Trade Commission, the Better Business Bureau, the State Attorney General's office. So we know what scams are out there, but I want to know which ones you're most worried about. So go ahead and type those in the chat. If you're on Zoom, type them in the chat. And if you're on Facebook, put it in the comment area. I see people typing. I'm hoping one of my friends here will read them back to me.
Kelly, are you ready? You want me to go ahead?
Yeah, you can start.
Sure. It looks like a lot of stimulus payments, car warranties, email virus protection, healthcare benefits. There was more than one on the stimulus payments. So.
Oh yeah, lots on that. And that comes in many forms too. So we'll talk about that in several variations. I know one of the county agents told me recently about a grandparent scam or a person in need scam. So we'll hit on those too.
That's all I'm seeing on Zoom. You might check your text or your Facebook.
Yep. Oh, I just got one. Let's see. We've got Social Security. Yes, you have to pay or your number is suspended. So one of those kind of threatening types. Yes. All right. So I'm going to move on. I'll make sure to hit on all of these. I wrote those down. And then if you think of something else, just drop it in the comment and we'll cover those too. But hopefully I'll hit on everything you've heard of because I have quite a list. So we'll try to move through as fast as I can. Check my time real quick. All right, so I was going to start with phishing. So sort of a cybercrime to lead into all the other types of crime. So phishing, I think we've all heard of this by now, but just in case you haven't, it's when somebody pretends to be someone else to get your information. So your password, your account information, maybe your PIN number, anything that's sensitive and personal to you. And the reason they want your information is because they either want to steal your identity, which usually leads to some kind of financial theft, or they just outright want to steal your money. So they want to phish your information to get you to pay them somehow. So the old version is the Nigerian prince or the inheritance. You've been found to be a relation to somebody who has lots of money, and if you just send some more information, we'll get that right into your bank account. I think most people are pretty aware of that one by now. The second older one, more common one is the bank information. So it looks like it comes from your bank. Um, they use the same logos. They use maybe even a fake website they direct you to. So it looks to be authentic, but it's not actually from your bank. Your bank's never going to ask for your account information. They already have it. They're not going to ask for your social or that other information. And I think everybody knows that by now, but the way that they can trick you with the bank stuff is if they happen to be pretending the bank that you actually use. So if you get an email from a bank you don't use, that's garbage. That's real easy to delete. But it does make you pause when it's, hey, that's my bank. I know that name and I get emails from that company. So that's when they blanket it enough that they may hit on the one that tickles that sense in you that, hey, I might need to read this because it might be from my bank. So just even if it's from your bank, read it with caution because somebody may be pretending. So more recently, like toward last year or so, there were a lot of the UPS shipping link. Your order has arrived. Well, I didn't order something, or it hasn't gotten here yet. Maybe I need to click this link. Don't click the link. Then for a while, it was payment declined. Your Netflix is suspended. Submit your credit card information so we can hook that back up for you. That sort of thing. And it could be any company. So basically, any important information from you name it could be a phishing attempt. So basically, you just have to read everything with caution. If you didn't ask for it, you probably don't need it. If it's companies you do business with, those are the ones that are more likely to trick you. So just read them with caution and maybe don't click the links in the email. Go direct to their website as you type it in and find the link that you need. The more recent COVID versions of the phishing scams have been the Treasury and the IRS. So everybody mentioned a stimulus payment or the economic impact payment that everybody's getting. If you need information on that, you can go straight to the IRS website. They have a coronavirus page where you can find information about those impact payments. There is nothing you need to do to get your payment. There are certain groups that don't normally file taxes that might need to use the IRS's tool, but they won't. You don't want to click the link in an email or something like that. You want to go straight to the IRS page to find this tool to enter your information. And that's only a subgroup of a certain, like people who get veterans payments that don't normally file taxes. And you only need to use the tool if you also need to claim dependents or something like that. So it's a smaller group of people. Most people don't have to do anything. You just, they will use your bank account that you use for getting your regular tax refund. If you haven't used a bank account for direct deposit, you'll be getting a check, and they said the checks will take longer. So don't worry if you haven't gotten it yet, it's in the works. You don't need to call if you have questions, but you can go online if you want to double check any of this. So that's irs.gov/coronavirus. So besides the stimulus checks, so they'll pretend to be from Treasury or IRS, we're also seeing World Health Organization or Centers for Disease Control, so CDC. They will try to pretend like this email has important information about the virus and you need to click this link to learn how to protect yourself. So don't click the link. That's the best way to protect yourself. And then finally on this, I want to mention the spoofing, which is using false data to put on that masquerade to look like somebody else. So you can change a link to look like it links somewhere when it really links somewhere else. You can change an email address to look like it's a government email and it's really from somebody else. And the same thing with your caller ID on your phone or even on your cell phone. There are machines now that can make it look like they're coming from an area code in your area or even your own phone number, because you look down, you see a phone number you recognize and you answer, but of course you're not calling yourself. That's somebody else pretending to be you. All right, so let's talk some more about other imposters. So not just online or on your phone, but these are all different ways that people kind of don a disguise, which is why I have a mask on there, and pretend to steal your information. And actually 1, 2, 3, 4 of these on this list are the most common scans that the Attorney General in Kentucky has reported seeing in the last year, actually probably the last 2 years. The government official scam, the deputy sheriff scam, the person in need, and the romance and online dating. So those are 4 of the top 5 that get reported in Kentucky to the Attorney General's office specifically. So let's talk about a few of these. On the chat or in the Facebook comments, I know that some people mentioned Social Security and the IRS in the sheriff's office in particular. So a lot of those are taking the tone of threats. So they want to threaten you into action. So I said the con artist will play on those triggers that make you want to react emotionally and not stop and think about it. And that's one of the ways they do it, is to threaten you, to make you feel like you have to do this now or some terrible thing is going to happen. You're going to lose your Social Security check. The IRS is going to come get you over back taxes. The deputy sheriff's going to come arrest you for something or other that you supposedly didn't do. And again, they're just playing on those fears to try to get you to pay something or to give them some information. For the deputy sheriff scam, I think sometimes those are even door to door. Government officials don't typically go door to door. If you're getting a call that's threatening, they're not going to, the IRS is not going to send you to jail for not paying your back taxes without contacting you multiple ways first. That's just not the way they operate. So they're going to send you a letter. You're going to have to go online and check it. There's going to be a process involved, and it's not going to be that urgent. With the kind of all of these, the other way they're doing this is if they're not threatening you, then they're just trying to gain your trust by looking like a trusted entity that you normally deal with. So again, they want your information or they want your money outright. So a lot of these, they will ask you to wire money. They will ask you to pay by a gift card. Those are not forms of payment that real government officials or others in this category are going to use. So you don't want to wire money. You don't want to pay by gift card, because those cannot be tracked and they cannot be reversed. So if you're going to pay something, you're going to want to pay in a traditional format. You want to mail a check, you want to use a credit card or a debit card. And credit cards actually offer a little bit more protections than debit cards for online purchases. So I'll talk about that more in a minute. Tech support, those are the things that pop up on your computer that say, you know, I'm from Microsoft or I'm from Apple and I want to help you. Well, we all know that they're not quite that helpful. Sometimes, you know, the updates and things may run, and that's great. You want to keep your software updated. But somebody's not going to pop up and just offer to help you out of the blue. So you want to worry about those a little bit. Charity scams, there are a lot of places that need money right now. A lot of places that want to do good and help others, and that's wonderful. Make sure if you're donating to a charity that you check it out first and that it's the right one. A lot of con artists will set up a charity with a name that's very similar to an actual charity, but it'll not be the real charity. It'll be their own pocketbook. So I wanted to talk about the person in need scam or the grandparent scam, because those I think happen a lot in this state and around all parts of the state. Okay, question about Real ID. I got to think about that one. So person in need scam, typically it was often the grandparent scam. So somebody calls and says, "Grandma, I'm in trouble. I've been arrested. I'm stranded in a foreign country. Something has happened. I need some money right now so I can get out of this situation." And there's always an urgency. They need the money now. So it's very urgent, and it's also secret. Don't tell mom and dad. I don't want to worry them. I don't want to get in trouble, whatever it is. I've even heard where they'll say, you know, if grandma says, "Johnny, you sound funny," he'll say, "Oh, I broke my nose. It's just been awful. Can you please just wire me some money?" It's always wired money or a gift card, something like that. Now the new COVID version might be, "I'm sick," or "I'm stranded because of travel bans," or something like that. So, you know, always be suspicious of that. If you think there's somebody, it doesn't have to be a relative, it can be anyone. If you think there's somebody who's contacting you for something like that, don't give them anything on the spot, not money or information. Hang up, take your time, take a breather, because that can be very traumatic to get a call like that. And talk to some other family. Don't keep it a secret, because again, keeping a secret is how it continues to happen. Um, so that's the best way to check it out, make sure it's real. A new one that's going around is somebody who looks like a principal or a pastor, and they're trying to collect some money for a needy family in the area. So you just, it's awful to say, but you just can't trust anybody, because it might actually be the person. It might actually not be the person that you would normally trust. It's somebody pretending to be them. Finally, the romance and online dating scam. I don't know if those are happening as much right now, although I have to say that the social distancing atmosphere that we're in might be conducive to those. So I hope they're not happening as much, but they very well could be, because one of the things that often happens in the romance scam is you meet online, you think this is the person that you always wanted to be with, and what happens is after a while in the relationship, they suddenly need money, but often they'll put off or they'll delay actually meeting. So you feel like you've really gotten to know this person, but you've never actually met them. And I would think that would be easier for them right now, since we're not supposed to be going out um, and meeting with a lot of people. So be very careful with that online dating information. And so somebody asked about the Real ID. I'm not sure what the question is with that. Those have been actually, I think a lot of the offices right now are closed, where you might not be able to get those IDs and dated right now. But the Real ID is something that's coming, and it'll be different as they roll it out. I don't think it's available in every county yet. So I think there is potential for something to be going on with those. All right, so other than imposters, I wanted to talk a little bit about advanced fee scams. So this is where the con artist is asking for money up front. They'll have lots of reasons that they could need this money. It might be for shipping or insurance or deposit money or a processing fee, or all sorts of different things that they'll claim they need a payment for before they send you the item. Or sometimes you pay for an item and you just never receive it. And that was the fifth of the top 5 scams from the Attorney General's office, was the online purchase scam, where you buy something online and then it never actually arrives. So you've paid for it, but you don't get it. And that's where I wanted to mention that when you're shopping online, I don't normally say that people should use credit cards for a lot of things, because obviously there's interest in fees and things, and so credit can be more expensive than paying for it outright. So while it's a good idea to pay cash for things, if you don't carry a balance on your credit card and you're able to pay it off, it may be a good idea to use a credit card for online shopping, because of the protections you're offered. So I think the amount of time you have to report something gone wrong on your credit card is longer than it is on a debit card. And there are federal protections if you don't receive the item, that you can have the purchase reversed. And so if you need more information on that, we can put a link in the chat from the Federal Trade Commission. But that's just one thing to think about. Other ways that scammers will try to get you to pay up front. There are a lot of information right now about government grants, maybe for education, like college or home repairs, or helping with expenses. There are some stimulus related grants for small business, things like that. So there are a lot of real things that are out there. And so, of course, there will be a lot of scammers who will try to imitate the real things that are out there. And a real government grant is not going to ask you to pay fees up front before you get the money. Same thing with fake loans. Lottery sweepstakes, you do not have to pay to enter a true lottery or sweepstakes. And then, so one of the new things we're seeing during this time with the coronavirus is the delivery service and the errands. Somebody will say, I know you're not wanting to go into the store right now. I can run those errands for you. Just give me your list and your money, and I'll bring you back your groceries. Except they take your list and your money and they never come back with the groceries. They could be doing that with groceries, prescriptions, or just about anything that you might want to have delivered. So make sure if you're using a service, if it's an individual, it's somebody you know very well. If it's a company, that you're using the actual company and not an imposter company. And then finally, I want to mention home improvement. This is one of the things that happens a lot with door-to-door salesmen. Not that these others can't as well, but so a home improvement scam is the old, I was blacktopping driveways in the neighborhood and I have this little bit of tar left over and I can do yours at a big discount because I want to get rid of it. So they take your money and then they don't actually come back and do the driveway. So that can come in different forms and different types as well. Some other scams not related to the imposters or the advanced advanced fees are the fake checks or money orders. So that's kind of like an advance fee in reverse. Somebody sends you a check. They say, oh, I accidentally made it out for too much. Here, you keep, go ahead and deposit it in and keep the extra and send me back what's left. Oh, that sounds reasonable, except that it's not. If the check is bad, what'll happen is it'll bounce in your account and you'll get a fee for the bounce check. Maybe for an overdraft if it ends up overdrafting you, and the bank will be out that money, so they'll collect it from you and you will be out the money that you thought you were keeping. So don't ever deposit a check from somebody else, especially if it's for the wrong amount. If it's not something that you were expecting or that you agreed on in advance. We're seeing more employment or work at home scams now because a lot of people are looking for work, and employment and working from home can sound really good. However, you need to watch for if there are forms to fill out, they could be collecting your information for identity theft. So watch out for what you might put on an application form for one of these things. And also sometimes they are just out to use you to move money or to move items for them. So we've seen fake employment scams where they're sending you the checks and asking you to send them back. So it's that fake check or money order type of scam combined with a work at home. Or they're sending you something and asking you to ship it on and you don't even know what's in the box. But here they're using you to ship things that they don't want to have on their record. So that's not a good situation to set yourself up for. Right now, there are a lot of fake products out there. We've heard about testing sites that aren't real. We've heard about products that are going to treat or prevent coronavirus or sicknesses. There are just a lot of things that people are trying to sell that just aren't quite what they claim to be. And again, with the products with false claims, the Federal Trade Commission has issued multiple warning letters and in cases against companies who go a little too far with their advertising. And so they have to scale that back or stop selling those products if they're going to claim things that aren't true. False investment opportunities. So, the next big thing that's going to be the cure might sound like it's going to do really well on the stock market, but just be careful what you're investing in. You want to invest in things that are publicly traded and in a way that you can check them out with a reputable company. So finally, I want to mention extortion scams. They've been on the rise. The Attorney General has warned about them several times recently. What'll happen is you'll get a phone call, an email, or a text that'll say, if you don't pay me money, I'm going to release these damaging pictures that you don't want anyone to see. They may not even have pictures. But if you're worried that you might have ever accidentally taken a photo and you think somebody might have gotten a hold of it, you might fall for this scam. So it's very threatening. It's very scary. They may have pictures, they may not, but a lot of times they don't even have pictures. They're just trying to get you to pay. So it's a way to threaten you again into handing over money. I want to pause right here and just see if there have been any additional questions in the chat. I've seen some conversation, but I haven't had a chance to check it, and I've got a message on my phone.
Kelly, just a comment about what do you do when you see the homeless veteran or homeless person that's sitting on the corner of the street? I know Lexington has a policy, but you might address what other counties or cities are doing.
You know, I didn't research that before this presentation, so I can check on that. I don't know. I don't know if there's a way to find out if they are authentically in need or not. Certainly, there's better ways for a person to go about seeking assistance. There are many government programs that can help, a lot of food banks and places that can help people who are in need. So you don't need to feel like you need to help people if you see them out in that way, because I believe the signs posted around Lexington say there's a better way to give. So it's not that we're not wanting to take care of people, but we don't want somebody to be taking advantage of us while we're in our cars. And also right now, you may not want to be interacting even through the window that closely. So just something to keep in mind. Somebody mentioned on Facebook, I believe, about chickweed salve, and so there's a lot of that's a very specific one, but there's a lot of products out there that are claiming to do miracle things, um, and I don't want to disparage any product that might do something for someone, so I don't want to address any particular ones, but I will just say that there are a lot of products that are claiming to do more than um, maybe they actually can. And so just you can do some research on anything before you buy it. Use some trusted websites to check it out. And if it's not too expensive, maybe you try it, but you don't want to use something that's going to damage you. And you certainly don't want to use something that costs a lot of money that doesn't do anything for you. So just be wary, especially if it's something claiming to be the new and the next best thing. All right, so I promised to share with you how to avoid falling victim to scams, and I said it's just 2 easy steps. Um, so the first step is just say no. That's easier said than done because these people are going to bother you no matter what you do, right? So if it's a telephone call, hang up. If it's something you repeatedly get, you want to block those calls. You want to block the spam email from coming to you, so you can set settings on your email and your phone to stop some of those. If they're knocking on your door, especially if you're home alone, don't answer that door if you don't know who it is. A peephole or looking out the window can help, so that you don't get caught unawares by somebody. You don't want a stranger in your house. You can register for the do not call list, and I've got the website on there. If you're going to register your phone, call from the phone you want to register, it'll know the number. Um, that can help, but it won't stop all of it. There are certain groups that are allowed to call you even if you're not on the list, and that includes, I think, charities and politicians and things you sign up for. So if you're in like a rewards program, they're still going to send you mail and emails and calls and bother you. There's also an opt-out list where you can opt out of pre-approved credit offers. So you can sign up for those things, but know that it won't stop everything. And also keep in mind that the scam artist is already not paying attention to the law. So the law is that if you're on the do not call list, they can't call you, but they don't care about the law. They're scamming you. So it does give you that comfort that if you didn't ask for it, you don't need it, and you can hang up just that much easier. So it can't hurt if you're interested to know that that's an option. And finally, under just say no, I say have a script or have a buddy. So some of us have a harder time saying no than others. And if you know you're that person that has a hard time saying no, it's okay to come up with a script. You can say, I'm not doing business today. I need time to think about that. I'll call you. You can send me information, but I'm not deciding today. But do know that if you say they can send you information, then they have another way to contact you later. So maybe you don't want to do that. But anyway, you can have a plan to get off the phone, to not have those calls anymore. And for the buddy, that's for the in-person, the door-to-door, or the free lunch type of scam, if you have somebody with you who can help you get out of the situation, so somebody who can interrupt and steer you out of that conversation you don't want to be in. Step 2 is to take time and research. So the best thing you can do to prevent scams and frauds is to check it out, to cool off. Don't be in a hurry, because again, they're going to push that urgency. They're going to want to make you feel like you have to do something right now before you have time to figure out that it's not real. So take the time to cool off. Don't make a move right this instant. And then get it in writing, and then read all the writing. And the best things are always hiding in the fine print, right? Check out the source and check references, and don't believe testimonials, because testimonials are often paid to say the wonderful things they say. Same thing with reviews. When you're buying things online, it's okay to check out the reviews. That can be a good sort of source, but if they're all positive, what product is perfect? So likely, if it's true and if they're authentic reviews, there's probably going to be a few bad ones and hopefully more good ones. If they're all good, it's probably too good to be true. If they're all bad, that's probably something you want to steer away from too. And then if you are filling out a contract or you're purchasing something, make sure you fill that out completely and that the information is accurate. Don't let somebody tell you that you can leave that blank and I'll fill it in later, because who knows what they're going to fill it in with. Make sure those forms are accurate. And to a little more detail, a couple more tips, and some of these I've already mentioned. Don't ever wire money or send a gift card to a stranger. With the extortion scams, I think a lot of times they're asking to be paid in Bitcoin. So these are ways that are untraceable and you can't get your money back. And there's a reason why they're asking you to do it that way instead of a more traditional way. They don't want you to be able to get your money back. So that's a definite red flag if they ask for that. Never send money to get money, and then don't deposit money and pay it back to somebody else. That's the fake check. Don't click links in emails or texts. So you want to open up a browser and type it yourself. Don't just hit reply, because again, it could be that fake email that you're replying to. You want to actually open a new blank email and type in the address for the person you want to reach. Keep your antivirus software and all your other software updated on your computer and on your phone too. Remember that your phone is a computer also, so you want to keep your browser updated and your system software, so that any patches they have to help catch those things will work. With phone calls, try not to answer. A lot of times I don't answer, but if I do answer because I'm not sure of the number, just don't talk for a minute. See what happens. If it starts being a recording, you can hang up without ever talking. If you say yes or press 1, you might be agreeing to something or confirming something, and it might not be what you think you're agreeing to or confirming to. So don't ever say yes or press 1 for a recording on the phone. Don't necessarily believe the caller ID or the email address, because again, they can make that look like something that it's not. And we all know if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. But if you go back to the beginning of my presentation, they work so hard to make it look real, you can't always tell. So that's not the best tip, but it's still on there. And finally, I want to say that anyone can be scammed, even people you trust. So there are people that we all trust. And if you want to type it in the chat, I won't make them read it back to me, but if you want to type in the chat who you really trust, I really trust my mom and my husband. And if they tell me something, I believe it. But you know what? If they tell me about some great new offer, I'm still going to check it out. Because what if my mom or my husband has been a victim and they don't know it yet? So somebody you really do trust could still be telling you something that's bad because they don't know that it's not real. So you could be protecting yourself and them if you check it out. And finally, if you report it. So we've got some contacts here for reporting fraud, and you can report scams to all of these or just one of these. In some cases, they share information back and forth. So if you report it at least one place, it will be tracked in, as we said, that fraud is underreported. If the authorities don't know that it's going on, they cannot fight it. So it's really important that scams are reported, whether you've been a victim or whether you just suspect. So please, if you hear of something going on in your community, please call it in or email it in to one of these places. They all have a website and a phone number. I didn't put the Better Business Bureau phone number because there's actually two for Kentucky because the state is split in half. So I didn't want to pick the wrong one since there's people from all over the state listening. So you can contact your local Better Business Bureau at their phone number. And then the phishing, if you get an email phishing, you can report that to the Internet Crime Complaint Center. That's actually run by the FBI. They won't necessarily be able to fix the phishing attempt or stop it from coming to you, but they do compile a list and they can go after people that they see a great amount of these coming from. So it does help to report it. And finally, I hope nobody on this has been a victim of identity theft, but if you are, there's a federal resource, identitytheft.gov. The state attorney general's office has resources at the state level as well to help you work through that if it has happened. So I hope it hasn't, but there are resources if it has. And that is my presentation. So I hope you've gotten something valuable from it, and I will stay on here in case anybody has any questions.
Kelly, do you want to mention about the way people try to get your information on social media?
Yeah, so I didn't address that specifically. It could be through fake ads. It could be through one of the things we see on social networking is it's just that whole they're trying to become your friend. So it may not be to the level of the online dating where they're not maybe even trying to be a romantic friend, but they're just trying to be your friend. They're trying to gain your trust. And they may be your friend for a good long time before they tell you about this great offer that they have. But that is one of the ways that they try to get to know you and know, again, those triggers that you have, the emotional reaction that will make you do whatever it is they want you to do that's good for them and bad for you.
I'm also thinking about when you see lots of fun quizzes or tests that everybody's taking, and they want to know what your favorite royal name was. I think that was last year was one that was going around.
Oh, that's
and
yeah.
So your mother's maiden name and the street you grew up on. And as they gather all of that information, they're getting information that's typically used as security questions.
Yes. Yes. So
yeah,
they could be tracking the information that becomes your personal identifying information that they could use for identity theft. So like you said, you want to set good passwords. I can talk about passwords all day, but you want to set good, strong passwords. The longer, the better. If it's hard for you to remember, it's going to be harder for them to hack it. So you don't want it to be those things that are personal to you, like you said, your grandkids' names and your first dog and the street you grew up on. And same thing with those quizzes. You don't want to put all that personal information on your when you're on your own Facebook page. We used to say don't put when you're going to be on vacation for a whole week, because then somebody knows your house is empty and they could break in and steal all your stuff. Well, we're all at home right now, but that'll come back in time where that's a concern again. But just be aware of what you're putting on there. And it's not just the people you want to see it who are going to see it. There are others who are going to see it as well.
And we also had Sarah mention about scammers who are trying to contact you through email at work. And so, they're representing themselves as someone that you trust. Like we've had lots from the dean, but they weren't really from the dean. And so, watch for those kinds of emails.
Sure. And a couple notes people have posted on Facebook is the Facebook Get to Know You post, where they'll ask you to list all that stuff, or post a picture of every car you've ever owned, or post a picture of your I think the one I've seen lately is your high school graduation photo. They're just out there fishing for all that information so they can try to fill things out in your name. You want to check, I didn't mention this, you want to check your annual credit report. You can get actually 3 free reports a year. They say 1 free report, but it's actually 1 free report per credit bureau. So there's Equifax, TransUnion, and Experian, and you can get a free credit report from each of those. And the website is annualcreditreport.com. So you can get those free reports, and you should to check and make sure there's nothing strange on there. So one of the ways identity theft happens is somebody gathers your information up and they apply for something in your name. Well, if you don't check your credit report, you may never know that's going on, because if they apply for a credit card in your name, it's not going to come to your house. It's going to come to whatever address they put on the form. So you don't know what's happening until you check your credit report. I think somebody mentioned virus protection at the beginning, and I didn't address that specifically. Virus protection and warranties. You're seeing a lot of that right now because people are hearing more about scams and frauds, and so there's going to be a lot more emails pretending to offer you some kind of protection or warranty. So again, it's better if it's something that you really want, that you go seek it out yourself and don't click on a link of something that comes to you. Find that service or product offered through a traditional means without leaning on what somebody is trying to trick you into getting. Any other questions? I think we're good on Facebook. I hope this has been helpful. I know these scams are out there.
Kelly, can you mention the 3 credit report companies again?
Yes, it's Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. And the website is, I want to make sure I tell you right, it's annualcreditreport.com. And it's strange because it's not freecreditreport.com. That's actually a company that's trying to sell you something. And it's not .gov, even though it's offered by the government. For some reason, it's a .com site. So it's annualcreditreport.com, and you can get all 3 credit reports from that one link. And when you're on the site, it'll show the little padlock symbol that shows that it's secure. It'll be an HTTPS. When you see that S, that means it's secure. So you'll know that it's a secure site when you put your information in. And it will ask you a lot of questions. They ask you things that would only show up on your own report, because they want to make sure somebody else is not pulling your report for you without your knowledge. So you will have to answer some questions to get your free credit report. Just answer them the best you can, and you will get that access. And it's very quick and easy. And then once you have reviewed that report, if you feel the need to keep it, you can print it or you can save it to maybe a flash drive or something, but you probably don't want to leave that on your computer, because if you ever did get hacked, you don't want all that information sitting right there for somebody to take. So just keep that in mind after you've downloaded it. If you need to save it, save it. If you don't need to save it, get rid of it. Go ahead and delete it.
We've also had a question about the new Experian Boost.
Mm-hmm.
Is that
So
legitimate?
I don't know a ton about that, but it is a real thing. And basically what you're doing is it's something they've done for a while, I think, in some form, but now they're marketing it as a more public tool. But so basically what they're doing is you're signing up to have one of your bills show up on your credit report that normally wouldn't show up on your credit report. So it's just a way to show that you're paying things on time, because that's the number one thing. Looks like I need to do a webinar about credit scores and credit reports. That might be the next one. So it's just a way to show that you're paying your things on time. And so if they're able to add a bill that is something that you always do pay on time, it can help you boost your score up a little bit. And so that's what that service is doing. It's not, I can't remember if it costs money or not. All 3 services now have some version of that, I think. I can't remember if it's free or if it costs money. If it costs money, weigh whether that's important to you. If you don't need to boost your score that much, I wouldn't pay for it. If you are struggling and you need to raise your score, it might be something to look into. So just a little information on that.
Thank you, Kelly. I think that we have all learned something today. And of course, we do have access to all kinds of information at our local extension offices. So if you have questions and didn't get them answered today, feel free to reach out to your local extension agent for Family and Consumer Science, and he or she can help you get that information. If they don't have it at their fingertips, they can certainly contact Kelly or one of our specialists to get that information for you. Because as we have reminded you from time to time, all of our extension offices are still open and working. They just might not be open to foot traffic right now. And so we do encourage you to use them as much as you possibly need to. With no further ado, I think we're going to close out this session, and we will be back next week on Tuesday for a session on your pets and your mental health and how they keep you healthy. So if you have other questions, feel free to post them in the chat box on Facebook, or on the comment box on Facebook Live, and we will make sure that those get to Kelly as well. Thanks for joining us today.
Family and Consumer Sciences Extension at the University of Kentucky. Our agents share research knowledge with individuals, families, and communities to improve quality of life. Building strong families, building Kentucky. It starts with us.
Thanks, everybody.